is my favorite time of year, and what's better than fall crafts? Hi, my name is Katie from Lady Red Crafting, and this video is part of a playlist that is doing inspiration videos. So I was inspired by Hot Humble Pie, Holly, and I'll put her link in the description box below. Let's get started with craft number 1. So let's take one of these signs from the Dollar Tree and elevate it up a notch. Grab a piece of scrapbook paper that is near decor style, and let's go ahead and cut them slightly bigger than each one of these signs. And once we have all of our paper cut, I take some Mod Podge and I'm just going to go ahead and paint a nice coat over the top of every one of these signs. And then we're going to set that aside to dry. Next, we'll grab a piece of parchment paper and one of the pieces of scrapbook paper, and we're just going to iron this right on top of the sign. So now that everything is attached, I grab a zip sander, or you can use a sanding block, and we're just going to sand off any of the excess paper around the edges of the sign. And this helps give it a clean look all the way around each edge. Now we're just going to repeat the same step for the next 2 signs. I want to use this sign outside. It's going to be undercover, but I still want to do an enamel over the top. And this is Rust-Oleum's clear enamel. And I'm just going to go ahead and spray this first before I attach any letters. And once I've attached the letters, I will do another coat. So I got these wood letters at Walmart, and it's a package of 36, and so I just laid them all out and came up with some different letters and words for the fall season. And once I figured out my 3 words that I wanted to place on the sign, I went ahead and used some apple barrel paint in light mocha to paint all my letters. So once all the letters have dried, I placed them on my sign to space everything out. And to glue them onto the sign, I'm going to use some wood glue that I did get from the Dollar Tree. I found that this wood glue works just as well as any wood glue you'd buy at the Home Depot or Lowe's. So I've been just going with this glue and it's been doing great. And I just put a few dots on each one of the letters and I just placed them back on the sign. And it did take about an hour or 2 for it to dry. It says it needs a little bit longer, but it was dry to the touch within an hour. So I felt like the sign needed just a little touch of something. So I added a little raffia bow up in the fall corner. Last, I did do a coat of the sealer again, the Rust-Oleum enamel. And once everything was dry, we were able to put this sign out in our flower pot. Craft number 2. So for this craft, I'm going to use 4 dice that I did get at the Dollar Tree. And I know you've probably seen a few other videos like this before, but I'm hoping I'm doing a new twist on it that will help inspire you to do something different. So what I like about these foam blocks is that you get 4 for $1.25, so that's a great value. It's also very easy to paint. So I did paint these with sandstone from Waverly. It did take 3 coats to cover all of those dots. So in the future, I may need to start priming these ahead of time, maybe use with a spray primer or something, just so that it doesn't take so many coats of paint. But it wasn't so bad watching my Hallmark and painting these over 3 times. So next I grabbed some stamps. These are some scrapbooking stamps that I had from Stampin' Up. And I'm just going to take the black ink and a piece of tissue paper, and I'm going to write out the word fall using the ink pad. And I'm spreading out the letters so that I can cut each letter out individually. So you'll notice that I'm not necessarily putting them in the order of the word. And I did do a few extra letters just in case something went wrong, since I was doing all of this now and I wanted to clean up my stamps. So once all my letters are placed onto this piece of tissue paper, I grab a small glass of water and a paintbrush. And I'm going to take my paintbrush And I'm going to paint the water around each one of these letters in an oval shape. And we're just going to tear around each one of these letters until each letter is cut out. So I had this beautiful leaf print paper in my stash, and I took it and cut out 4 squares for each one of my cubes using my trimmer. And now I grab 4 half wood beads and I paint them with my Waverly Truffle paint. And now that everything's dry, let's put everything together. Let's grab our 4 blocks, and I'm just positioning them so they look like they're the same way. Even though they're a cube, sometimes you need to flip them around and make sure that you like how they look. And I'm going to take some of my Mod Podge here, and I'm just going to go ahead and Mod Podge on the little pieces of paper onto each one of these cubes. So with the fall season right around the corner, I'd love to hear about what your favorite thing is with the fall. Please share in the comments below. After I position the blocks in a way I would like them to be arranged, I take the little letters that we did earlier with the tissue paper, and we're going to use the Mod Podge and paint over the top of the scrapbooking paper that's on the cube. And then we will add the little letters on top of that. So next you'll see me add the F onto the first one here. And we just let that down really nice and gently. And then you take the Mod Podge and you just kind of paint over the top. And with the tissue paper being so opaque, it just fades right into the scrapbooking paper. And once all of these letters are attached, we're going to set these aside to dry. So let's grab some berry garland that we have from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to cut them about 2 inches in length, leaving 1 set of berries on them. And I'm just twisting them around a piece of a skewer, and we're just making a little curly Q that we're going to add on to the top of each one of these different blocks. So here's the fun part, putting everything together. I'm taking some Spanish moss and some hot glue, and I'm going to start by putting a little bit of Spanish moss on top of each of these blocks. I'm then going to hot glue one of those little half beads that we painted earlier. We'll add one of those curly Qs, and we can stick that straight into the foam of the block. And you can use a little bit of hot glue to make sure it stays into place, but it sticks into the block pretty well with that wire. And I'm just going to repeat that step on all of the blocks, putting the moss, a little half bead, and then that little curly Q on each one of them. And now these beautiful shelf sitters are all ready to be displayed. So these beautiful ladies are hosting this month's Fall Open Challenge Recreation Inspiration. Thank you Amanda from 6 Kids and a Glue Gun, Charlene from Crafty Art Shack, and Stephanie from Mama Can Make It. These talented ladies and the playlist are linked below in my description box. Please take the time to check them out. Thanks. Now let's roll right over to craft number 3. Canning jar shelf sitters that you find at the Dollar Tree for most seasons are a great item to add to any farmhouse decor. You just need to maybe elevate it a little bit and make it more of your own. So that's what I'm going to do here. We're going to remove as many of the pieces off of this jar that we can. And to get some of that paper off, I use a wet paper towel, and I actually scrape most of this off using my scraper tool from Cricut. Then I'm going to use my zip sander and just sand off any excess. At first I thought I was going to paint this, which is why I removed like everything. But after doing all of that, I decided I wanted to put some scrapbooking paper over the top of this canning jar. So we cut out a piece of scrapbooking paper slightly bigger than the jar itself. To attach this paper to the jar, I'm going to use a glue stick, and we're just going to glue that right over the top of the whole entire jar. We then lay the piece of scrapbook paper right over the top, and I'm going to use a popsicle stick just to smooth out that piece of paper onto the jar. And we're going to set that aside to dry. And once everything is dry, we're going to grab our zip sander here or sanding block, and we're just going to sand in a downward motion to remove all of the excess paper. So I'm going to grab a silkscreen stencil. These stencils I did get on Amazon, and they came in a 6-pack, and they were all fall themed, and they're really cute. I'll put a link in the description box below. And I'm going to use my chalk paste, and I decided to go with Desert Rose. It's like a lighter pink color. And using our squeegee, we'll just paint over this whole stencil. If you haven't used these stencils before, these are great. They're self-adhesive, and you can wash them with warm water and reuse them again later on. Now let's go ahead and put together our little jar. I'm going to reattach the silver piece at the top of the jar here. Then using hot glue, I'll also reattach the cute leaf that came with the jar and a nice bow on top. For the final finishing touches, I did a jute twine bow to cover up a little mistake with the paint right over by the home. I love how this jar turned out. I can't wait to display it with my fall decor. On to craft number 4. For this craft, I used a wood spoon that I got at the thrift store, and I'm going to go ahead and use my painter's tape here. We're just going to tape the top part of the spoon off. And once everything is ready, we'll grab our Waverly paint in the color Moss. We'll paint the top part of the spoon. I am painting both the front and the back side of the spoon, and it did take 2 coats to cover completely. And once the moss paint is dry, I grabbed my Apple Barrel Burnt Umber paint, and I tried to paint some little lines to make it look like a pumpkin, and it didn't quite turn out the way I wanted. So once those dried, I did grab some of my sandstone paint from Waverly, and I went over the top just lightly like a whitewash, and then I went back and added a little more moss, a little bit more burnt umber. Just kept doing that until I liked the way it looked. Once that was completely dry, I removed the tape, and we're going to make the top part a little pumpkin. So I grabbed a stick and I just cut that down to size, and we're going to glue that right on the top of the spoon with hot glue. And using some Spanish moss, we're going to go around the stem of that pumpkin, and this will help keep it in place. It'll kind of hold it there, and we just push that all the way around. And then if you don't like that much moss on there, you can always give it a little haircut with your scissors. Once the hot glue is set, I grabbed some of this beautiful ribbon, and I got this ribbon at Walmart. I'm not able to find a link online yet for it, so I would check your Walmart store. It was $4.44. It was in the ribbon section, and I really liked how this ribbon turns out. It's just very rustic, and it's very fall to me, so I've been using it a lot in my fall designs. And now this pumpkin wood spoon is ready to display. I'm going to add it to one of my little potted plants at home in the house, just to give it a little bit of fall. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate all the support. Please remember, craft more, stress less.